Today we are studying, in this week's study, Tried and Crucified. We look at the books of Mark chapter 15, verses 15 to 20, entitled Hail, King of the Jews, from the book of Mark 15:20, and it reads, So Pilate, wanting to gratify the crowd, released Barabbas to them, and he delivered Jesus, after he had scourged him, to be crucified. Then the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole garrison. And they clothed him with purple, and they twisted a crown of thorns, put it on his head, and began to salute him, Hail, King of the Jews! Then they struck him on the head with a reed and spat on him, and bowing the knee, they worshipped him. And when they had mocked him, they took the purple off him, put his own clothes on him, and led him out to crucify him. The Romans utilized a severe form of beating to prepare prisoners for execution. The victim was stripped of his clothes, tied to a pole, and then lashed with leather whips to which pieces of bone, glass, stones, and nails were tied. After Jesus was whipped, the soldiers tasked with his execution continued his humiliation by clothing him in a purple robe, placing a crown of thorns on his head, and mocking him as King of the Jews. The group of soldiers is called a battalion, in this case anywhere from 200 to 600 men. The irony in the scene is evident to the reader because Jesus really is the king, and the mocking words of the soldiers proclaim this truth. The action of the soldiers was a parody of how soldiers hailed the Roman emperor with the words, Hail Caesar Emperor. Thus, there is an implicit comparison to the emperor. The actions of the soldiers in mocking Jesus are striking his head with a reed, spitting on him, and kneeling down in mock homage. All three of these actions are expressed in Greek with the imperfect tense. In this setting, this tense has the idea of repetitive action. Thus, they kept striking him, kept spitting on him, and kept kneeling down in mock homage before him. Jesus takes all of this in silence, not responding at all. The typical pattern of Roman execution by crucifixion involved having the convicted person carry the cross naked to the place of execution. This pattern, again, was to humiliate and shame the person completely before the community. But the Jews abhorred public nakedness. Mark 15:20 notes that they removed the purple cloak and put his own clothes back on him. Thus, this appears to be a concession that the Romans made to the Jews at that time and place. Think about all the irony here. Their bowing and paying homage to Jesus as king was all in mockery, even though Jesus really was the king, not just of the Jews, but of the Romans as well. These men had no idea what they were doing. Why, though, will their ignorance not excuse them on Judgment Day?